We are certainly extremely thrilled to be in Moldova. Moldova is an amazing example of what can transformation power of Europe can do, even for the worst run areas in the past of former Soviet sphere of influence, and certainly the country that had suffered immensely from Soviet period and from domination of the Communist Party of this part of Europe, how it can relieve itself from the past and how it can gradually move towards Europe. And I think what really had happened in Moldova for the last several years, when young people of Moldova has really become the driving force of European integration, together with our colleagues here, Liberal Democratic Party, I think this is a very good example of what the new generation of politicians can accomplish in almost hopeless situations. And so I would like to compliment you, and on the other hand, I want to express our own regret that initially, when we were on a winning ticket with Moldova, Georgia at this stage, when we just a couple of years ago we were talking about possibility already in Vilnius for Georgia and Moldova not only to get association agreement but to get European perspective. And unfortunately, Georgia couldn't, unfortunately, as President Martin said, had created some difficulties what happened in Georgia since last year. And I think they are temporary, I think they're provisional, I think they will not, cannot last and will not last, but certainly it's a pity that now there are much more talk about problems in Georgia than it was ever before. And I think this is not due towards domestic problems in Georgia, but what really happened in the region. What really happened in the region was that Russia first used all kinds of means. They used economic embargo, energy embargo. In 2008, Georgia was attacked by the full extent of Russian army, aviation, and sea force. And despite this big military attack and war, Georgia continued to progress. And Georgia continued to progress with high growth rates, with very low corruption rates, with very low crime rates, with excellent business environment. And this was the worst problem for our Russian neighbors. Not so much the European aspiration per se or NATO aspirations of Georgia, but the fact that we turned out to be a successful country. But at the same time as being a successful country, we also were a democracy. So obviously, new way how to manipulate and how to use political influences is, after war had failed, after embargoes had failed, was to get into political process through democratic means. And before our elections, billions of dollars of Russian money came into Georgian politics, in combination with military pressure and provocations, and now the money. Certainly it contributed to election results in Georgia with all the other issues that we had, and certainly the situation that emerged after elections is something that I think the whole process went forward. And the process was basically to get Georgia off the track. Off the track, not so much even by political declarations, but by mere fact that there are internal difficulties and problems now that creates a situation when it's much more difficult, unfortunately for me and tragically for me personally, because I invested so much in that, about faster speed for Georgia's integration into Europe. As I say, this is what happened in my country. This is what happened before my country in Ukraine. I think this is what the risk is related also to our Moldovan friends. And I should be very frank about it. I think the same methods that were applied to Georgia by the same people will be very much applied to Moldova for months and years to come, as they've been applied in recent past. We all know that. We share some of the things in recent past that were applied to us, as well as the conflicts that also make lots of commonalities. And from that point of view, I think the best recipe is, no matter what they do, no matter what the enemies of progress of our countries do, to go forward, to integrate, to build European future, to build democracy, to empower the youth, and not to look back. I think forces that are taking us back have no future for themselves. I think it's just a matter of time after the whole imperial sphere of what is today Russian Federation will disintegrate, and I think we will disintegrate as an imperial sphere and sphere of influence very fast. But of course I wish all the best to the Russian people and their nation. But we have only one home, one direction, one aspiration, and no matter what, we'll go in that direction. I'm totally convinced of that. I was convinced of that when I first came as a beginner president to this very palace, I remember a few years ago, to what was then the CIS sponsored meetings, and we are no longer members of CIS. Things have changed. I'm more than ever convinced now, even with all our setbacks. Again, good luck, thank you, and let's steer on that course.